This is a bonus lesson added as part of my 2D 3D storyboarding course. With the release of Blender 5.0 in late 2025 comes a big new improvement in the form of the new storyboarding template, which uses the latest video sequencer features to improve the workflow greatly, especially default vanilla Blender, because this new storyboarding template doesn't require any external add-ons. This is all built into Blender. This video will cover how to use this for a pure 2D storyboarding workflow, covering similar ground to Pablo and his brilliant official Blender tutorials, which are linked in the descriptions. Setup. So this only works with Blender 5.0, so you'll need to have Blender 5.0 installed. And then to get started, we can either go through the startup screen here, choosing the new storyboarding template, like you would any other template. We now have this new storyboarding template. Or within a new file, we can go to File, New, Storyboarding option. It doesn't require activating any add-ons. This is simply built in now as default. It's already set up to work right out the box. What this will give us is a setup now with two workspaces here at the top, where you can see storyboarding and video editing. We'll be using both of these in the workflow, but mainly we will be in the storyboarding workspace for the majority of the work that we're going to be doing, including most of the edit, and then using the video editing space mainly for exporting the sequencer later. The storyboarding workspace. As you can see here, this workspace comes set up with a clean viewport for drawing, with the grease pencil already set up and active, with the grease pencil tools and settings already displayed clearly, ready to go here on the right. At the bottom here, we have this new dual timeline setup. On the bottom, your strips, which represent shots or scenes, are arranged in these strips along the timeline, each one representing a shot or a cut in the edit. It is essentially an edit of your sequence overall. And if you think about editing with normal video, each of these strips now is like that, but it's actually a window into a live scene. I think that might be the easiest way to wrap your head around these scene strips, is that they're kind of like, they're just basically windows into a live scene, right? Rather than a 2D video on a 2D edit. So on this bottom strip, on this bottom timeline, this is the video sequence editor, and this is where your edit is going to live. On the top here, this top timeline is like your live scene workspace. This is where all of your keyframes are going to show up if you draw grease pencils or if you move objects and things like that. On the top timeline, we have our active scene range. So this is us within the scene. Whenever we're controlling up here, we're actually controlling just within that scene. Whereas on the bottom, we're playing the whole edit, right? So if I hit play on the edit timeline, the bottom timeline, it will run through the whole edit, switching shots as we go. You see, as the timeline runs, it's jumping through each of those shots and it's displaying the active scene above. You'll notice the top line is playing. But if I hit play up in the top timeline, it will only play the frame range of this shot. So the idea here is that your bottom timeline is where you're pressing play, you're watching your edit, and each of the shots run into one another. Whereas then if you want to work on one of those shots, you come up into the top timeline and you hit play there. So it'll just cycle and you can focus on just that shot only. And then again, you want to see how that's going to play within the edit. You come back to the bottom, you hit play, you see how it runs. That's kind of the basis of the workflow. So we can very quickly start building out a 2D storyboard this way. And while we're on the subject of immersing ourselves in drawing, this course was created in close collaboration with the awesome team at ArtWod.com. ArtWod believes that everyone has the potential to express themselves through art, no matter their background or experience level. It's a philosophy I really share. Their mission is to redefine art education by making it accessible, fun, and engaging for all, from passionate hobbyists to future professionals. ArtWod is the perfect companion to my own teaching, including this course. Why? Because they cover the foundational skills that I don't. Drawing fundamentals and core design principles. Solid fundamentals are what allow us to bring our ideas to life. ArtWod offers a powerful platform to build those skills, all while tracking your progress through a motivating and seamless learning experience. No matter where you're starting from, Improving your drawing fundamentals with ArtWod will unlock huge growth in your 2D, 3D storyboarding abilities. On ArtWod, you'll find easy to follow learning paths covering everything from drawing characters, portraits, and environments to storytelling and visual design. These paths are tailored to your goals with a strong focus on essentials like spatial awareness, form, shading, and composition. Getting started is simple. Just sign up, choose a path, and dive in. The lessons are structured like games with fun challenges and workouts where you can track your progress, earn rewards, and learn at your own pace. You can be confident that every step in the ArtWod roadmap is taking you closer to your creative goals. As part of my collaboration with ArtWod, you can now get a special discount. Just use my link in the description below and start leveling up your fundamentals. Creating shots. So I'm gonna kind of reset this now so it's exactly as it comes out of the box. So currently, when we come back to a fresh scene in Blender using this storyboard template, we only have 2 default strips at the bottom. So then this brings us to how do we create shots? How do we create new shots? We have a few options for that. We can do a full copy of an existing strip by hitting Shift D and dragging over any other clip. So you hit your clip, you select your clip, you hit Shift D and you drag it over. This will create a pure full copy. For a pure 2D workflow, I would actually suggest that when you open up a fresh file like this, you just duplicate a bunch of shots immediately. Just do as many as you think you're going to need. What you're essentially doing is you're creating a bunch of blank shots for you to work in. So nothing I do to one of them will affect or show up in the others because they are full copies. If you do want to be an instance, let's say it's a return to the same camera angle or something, right? You could draw your shot here. Let's say it's a close-up of a character and you know you want to come back to that and you do want anything you draw in one to happen to the other. If you create an instance by hitting Alt D instead of Shift D, this will create an instance version of it or a linked version of it or shared version. Think of it as, like I said before, it's kind of like 2 windows into the same room. So Alt D creates the instance, and now you can see if I change something in this one, it does show up in the others. If you want to make a brand new shot, we come down to the edit timeline and hit Shift A, select the scene here, then come over to choose this asset and choose the scene name under that, in this case 000. So now you have a completely fresh strip on the timeline which has no association with any of the other shots that were made. So now you got a whole bunch of strips and you can board to your heart's content. Just let that edit play out, stop, work where you want, carry on. And also, in the interest of getting into that stay in the moment 2D workflow, if you've got the Grease Pencil Tools add-on installed, this timeline will show up when I hold Alt and middle mouse button and scrub side to side. You get the timeline showing up with all the keys on it of every layer. And I'm currently scrubbing every frame, but you can change that setting, remember? So then we come to Preferences, go to Extensions, Grease Pencil Tools. It's already built into Blender, you just have to activate it. And then you go to Add-ons, and then you find your Grease Pencil Tools, drop it down, and there's a whole bunch of options you can have here. And if you hit Always Snap, then it'll then jump to, instead of scrubbing every frame, it'll just jump to the keys. You just scrub along. I want to work on this. You know, the reason I really like the snap feature is because you know you're always landing on a key. It's just really good for keeping the workflow going, keeping your hand where you want it to be, scrubbing back and forth on the keys and then drawing. Good stuff. Now, you know, it's same with everything now. Basically, because this template is for pure 2D, everything's simple, right? You just got a white background. We've got a simple grease pencil, and that's all you need. If you do want to make more grease pencils, you can, of course, just create new grease pencils like you would normally. Or you would then go into the grease pencil layers instead and create a new layer. And that new layer could be like your second character or something like that. I would suggest that if you're doing pure 2D, you just try and keep it as simple as possible. I think having one grease pencil and then having multiple layers within for everything you need is a smarter way of using it for a pure 2D way of working. Once we get into hybrid stuff later, that isn't the case. And as with everything else, remember, if you want to pop out of the camera for whatever reason here, you just all of these buttons do the same thing they used to do. This one puts you in and out of camera mode. This one locks you into the camera, or you can press 0 to go in and out of the camera, number pad 0 to go in and out of the camera. All of your navigation shortcuts, like, shift middle mouse button, all that kind of stuff, that all works exactly the same here, right? There's nothing new. Color attribute. If I am working pure 2D, something I like to do to keep things really simple is take advantage of the color attribute for selecting colors and shades instead of bothering to make materials for each new color. I think the way this color attribute works is much more in line with most 2D people's expectations are from a 2D software. It's what everything else is like, right? You just pick your color and draw instead of having to make a material in Blender, which is the normal way of doing things. So I suggest just kind of like drawing away however you want. I simply choose the brush I want to use. I leave the material as black. I just do my sketches. And then if I do want to draw with another color, let's say a mid-gray, then I simply come over to this color here, the color attribute, and I choose the color I want and I draw with it. There's no need to switch materials. There's no need to make any new materials. Let's say if I did want to do a quick shade or a mid-tone layer here, I just come over to my layers, I go to the fill layer, or I create a new one, and I do my shades on that using a fill material. So I can switch to a fill material that's already built into the grease pencil. But if I wanted that to be a different color, I then just choose the color I want, and that's the color the material is going to be. Just bear in mind, of course, that these color choices are more permanent than using materials, because you can't change them after the fact, not quite in the same way as you can with materials, but you can tone down the influence. So let's say you've done something and you chose red at the time and you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I'd like to kind of walk that back or tone it down. You can come up to here by coming into the grease pencil, changing this setting here. If you drop that down, you can see that the strength of that influence of the added color then goes up and down. Worth saying here as well that all of the other overlays that you already know about in grease pencil that already exist, all exist here too. We've got the onion skin, the opacity, the canvas, all that good stuff. Camera moves in 2D. If you want to move the camera, it's the same as the default, but you'll likely be in grease pencil mode, draw mode to begin with. So you'll need to first switch into object mode and then make sure you've got your camera selected by either hitting the camera in the viewport or up in the outliner, just to be safe and you know you've actually got it fully selected. And then if we're not in the camera, you want to hit that button there to go into the camera. And then we want to make sure this is locked so that when we move the viewport with our, our little shortcuts, control and middle mouse button, shift and middle mouse button, and then also just middle mouse button, etc. If you want to make camera moves, so if you just want to adjust for your framing, then you just do this once, right? You don't need to make multiple camera moves. You just go in, I'm going to frame that up like that, and that's it. But if you want to make a camera move, then you need to make multiple keyframes. Now, the problem we've got immediately is that with the template the way it is, because it's set up for storyboarding, the dope sheet is going to be in grease pencil here, right? So you're only going to see your grease pencil keys. So when your grease pencil selected, right, you're only going to see those. So if I come here, then you'll see the grease pencil keys show up, right? But you're only going to see that. I can't see the camera keys, even though I've got the camera selected, because of course the camera doesn't have grease pencil keys. So if I want to see any object keys, including the camera, I just need to switch this to dope sheet instead of grease pencil. And now you can see I've got camera keys, and that's already picked up on stuff I was doing, right? So I've already got 2 camera keys. I'll delete this one. So we've got this one, right? We've set up, like, say, a master sort of framing, and then you want to, do a move here, whatever that may be. What I'll do is I'll start on the face of the character here, right? And then I'll just pull that camera right back then to more in line with that kind of master framing we were talking about. Maybe I'll come a little further actually here. So now you've got your keys and there's your camera move. And let's say I didn't want to do a pull out like that. I wanted to do more of a medium framing. I want to do a pan down. I'll just hold my middle mouse button. Oh, see, this is why you have to make sure you've got the camera selected. Right, you see what's happening here? I'm in draw mode. This is very easy to get into the habit of doing, is I'm accidentally in draw mode here, right? So the camera will still make a key, but because I'm not selected the camera, some of the inputs are different, right? Because the pan input is associated with actually having the camera selected. So I'm going to select the camera. I'm going to go into object mode, select the camera. So if you really want to make sure you've absolutely got the full control of the camera, you want to make sure you're in object mode and you've got the camera selected, right? So now I'm panning and that's like correct because I'm controlling the camera like from inside it because I've got orbit around selected in my preferences. It's a good thing to know though, right? That, you know, even if you do have your grease pen selected and you're in draw mode, you can adjust your camera, right? In the other ways, you can do all of the other inputs absolutely fine. It's just that middle mouse button's going to act differently. But you're also not going to see. That's the problem as well. See, is if you don't have the camera selected, you're not going to actually see the keyframes. So I would say select the camera. It's safer. The nice thing about the dope sheet selection, right, dope sheet and then grease pencil, is it will remember across all of your shots, right, all of your scenes. So you don't have to like constantly keep switching. It's more like I'm in grease pencil mode, so therefore I probably want the grease pencil dope sheet open mostly. But then you're in camera mode, right, where you're going to tweak and you're going to add your camera moves and stuff. Then put your mind into that mentality and then go into object mode, have the dope sheet, and then come and work on this. You just basically create whatever keyframes you want now in order to make the camera move that you want. It's really simple. Editing the strips in the sequencer and changing scene frame ranges. Okay, so now we've got an edit, right? We've got a whole bunch of stuff here. I'm going to switch the overlays off a minute so we get rid of that orange. So if you're having that, by the way, it means you're just in object mode and you have the grease pencil selected, and so it's highlighting it. So if you switch it off, it goes. For the purposes of demonstration, now let me jump over to the video editing suite, which is exactly the same thing on the bottom, and then you've just got a kind of bigger image on top. So here we're in the video editing then. Okay, so just basic controls with a video editor. You grab your strips and move them around, right? You just grab hold of them, move them around. You make them shorter or longer by pulling the end in and out. That will only go to the existing scene frame range, and I'll get into that in a minute. So you can do that. You can move them around so they push things on, but in order to have that work, you need to have expand on. I think by default it comes in as shuffle, which I'm not sure what it does. I don't use that. I use expand because it's predictable, right? Expand means that any change after here, like if I go and insert that between them two, it's going to push that all on, right? So, and also like if I expand out, say if this was this short and I put it here, and then I grab it and expand it out, it's going to again push it on. So it's like a ripple push. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically do ripple delete yet. I'm sure that's going to come in a future version of the VSE. I think those kind of things are pretty normal and fundamental, and hopefully they will, because the VSE has had such an upgrade. I think these things will come in time. And then if I want to close these gaps, I just go to them, hit backspace, right? So that's your general, like how you move, how you expand, contract, switch the order of things. You can even say grab 4 shots, move them over here, right? So then you're really into that like shot shuffling kind of mentality, right? And again, you might want to separate that piece of your brain off into this room, right? Now, I like to work real time like this. It depends how big your sequence is, right? If I had 100 shots here, I probably wouldn't stay here all the time for my editing because it's going to get a bit unwieldy, right? Everything's going to get small. So in that case, then I would probably go, all right, I've done a lot of drawing, I've done a lot of working. I'm going to bounce over to the video editing suite now and just put my head into editor mode, right? And you know, all these same inputs and everything happen here, right? You scroll in and out, control, middle mouse button, all that stuff is a little bit zooming in and out, like up vertically is quite tricky, but you get a feel for it, right? Just hold control and middle mouse button and you can just zoom in and out and expand and contract this whatever direction you want. Then if you want to split a shot, which is what I'm effectively going to do is, you know, like the way we talked about instancing making like 2 windows into the same room. if I come to the blue one here now, right? So this is currently just one shot at this duration, right? But let's say I wanted to intercut this. If I come here and I hit K, that's going to split it. Now you might want to do that to like quick delete things, right? You might want to go there and then just delete the shot and then delete that piece of it and it's gone. But you might also just want to split it because you want to come back to the shot. So if I then grab this bit here and stick it there, close this gap with backspace, then I'm on this shot, then I go to this shot and I come back to this shot, right? This is the same scene, right? So I'll come back to the storyboarding workspace here, so just so you can see what's actually happening there, right? So these blue ones, pay attention to these blue ones, right? So I'm in here and you can see that it's 0 to like 24-ish, right? 0 to 23, and it'll scrub across there, and then it comes to this, and then it comes back, and we come in at 24 to 48. So I've kind of split that in half, right? So, but it's the same scene, and I'll demo that now by going back into this one, like we did earlier, right? If I go into the, if I just go into the fill layer, right, and I'll make a solid fill, and let's actually change the color, right? I'll do a color attribute like for a green floor, right? And I'll do like a big old fill on the floor here. So now if I you can see it's active in this part, but it's also active here as well. So if you want to do that, great, right? It's the same shot effectively, right? Any change you'll make in it, but it's relative to what part of the frame range you're at, right? So if for example, that's the keyframe here on that character, if I come here and then I make a new keyframe on the character, he's on the character, yeah. I'll just grab him a minute and move him over, right? So I'm in edit mode. I've hit A, I'm hitting G. I'm just gonna slide him over. Maybe I'll scale him up a bit, right? So he comes closer to camera or something like that. Then hit this off. Now you'll see that this is still as it was, yeah, because we didn't hit that key. We haven't, can you see it there? The key here. We haven't hit that key yet. And then when I come back to it, we hit the key, and I could even move that, right? So that we get the little bit of animation happening in that second shot. So now you see why I like to work in the edit like this, right? Because I can make those decisions and just adapt what's inside the scene as I'm going. Whereas if I'm here, right, it's not so easy to do that, right? You kind of just looking at it as an edit here. And you can see all of those changes I made are reflected here as well. So this is totally live as well. Something else you can do with the strips, slipping. It's called slipping the strip. Yeah, let's say then I don't want this second thing anymore, right? I'm gonna delete that now, right? But the action I've got now is outside the frame range. I don't really want to extend the shot, but I want like this to cover a difference. Again, I think this is easier to show in the storyboard mode, right? So here I want to slide this window basically right over so that I catch the next key. The way I can do that is if I hit the strip and then I hold S. You see this like can you let me try and zoom in a little here. Watch these extra lines that show up now, right? So if I hold S, see you got the blue line here down in the just in the VSE. You got like that's basically the beginning and the end of the shot. That's your full frame range. And I'm sliding it so the strip covers a different part of it. You see that in the top there, the like lighter window, which is your active frame range, is sliding along. So that's what I'm doing there. So I want to do this so like the second key comes in halfway through. I'm going to drop that there. Now when I play it, that's the frame range it's covering. So I love that feature, this scene strip feature. That's lovely, right? Because it means you don't have to come up here and like change where keyframes are necessarily. Say you've locked in a really complex shot where you've got like, you know, say 10, 15 different poses and it's all like super tight timed keyframes. And you don't want to go mucking about and like moving all the keyframes. All you have to do is that you just slip the frame range. Changing scene frame ranges and refreshing that in the strips. Hopefully what I'm about to explain here will become like a just automated in the future, because it feels like a sort of feature that ideally should be automated. So what we're going to talk about here now is like when I created all these shots to begin with, you can see they're all the same. All these ones here are the same length because this is the length. All of these have been, some of these have been manipulated down here, right? So they're longer and shorter. But these are all the same length because the default when you create a new scene, so if I create a new one here, scene 0, are going to be that length, right? They're 48 frames in the Blender default, which is very, very short. That's the reason why like this shot here is 48 frames, right? But let's say that's not enough, because inevitably it's not going to be for everything, right? If you're just doing beat boards and you're timing things out, then it's going to be fine. But if you've got like, you know, you can have variably long shots, right? You can have shots that are much longer than 48 frames, right? So if you want to change that, right, then let's go the other way first. Before we expand, let's contract, right? I'll come up into this shot here, and you see this here? This is the frame range. So I'm going to drop that to, let's drop that to 20, right? And if I come here now and I play, nothing's really changing. At the moment, it's kind of playing out as it was, right? Because I haven't updated the frame range. Now, if I come to the strip and right click and come to update scene frame range, which by the way, you can make a shortcut for anything here by pressing right click and then assign shortcut. So if you want to make yourself a little shortcut for this, go ahead. Right, scene frame range. You see what's happened there? Now we've got this. Before I did that, it was all colored in, and now it's got half like dead, and it stops, right? So it stops, and then the thing freezes because it's only that's like the only bit of information the strip has got now to play with, right? Because everything after that is like locked off. So what you're going to find then the other way around is if I wanted to make this longer than it was initially, so I want to make this 100 frames, right? I want to pull out on the timeline there. So you see it's got this dull gray, right? But, right, so if I try and pull that out, right, let me just pull it up here a minute so it's clearer. I can't actually pull that out. I can pull it back, but I can't pull it further than 48 frames because there is like there is nothing yet, right? Because it hasn't been refreshed. All you have to do again is go here, update scene frame range, and now I can pull that out all the way to the 100. So if you find that you've expanded your shot beyond its initial range and you can't access all of it on the timeline, just right click, update scene frame range, or hit whatever shortcut you've made. And the same thing, you know, happens here with like, you can then, you know, slip the strip if you want, right? If you made it shorter, now you've got 100 frames to play with. If you hit S, you'll see a much wider like frame range outside of that. I absolutely love those little indicators. They make me happy when I do it. Okay, so that's how you refresh the scene strips. And again, as I said, hopefully that just becomes automatic at some point, or at least have a preference for it to become automatic, because why would you not want it to refresh, right? So that covers everything for the default setup of the new storyboarding template. In the next lesson, we'll be talking about how to customize the template with the scene asset feature and how to export your edit.